Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop, and welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at La Marzocco. They make espresso equipment, especially espresso machines that are the quintessential and like bedrock espresso machine for the coffee industry. And I say that because, I grew up in my career with La Marzocco, the Linea Classic. I think those of us who have been in coffee for a while have just worked on some kind of La Marzocco because they have been the workhorse. They have been the dependable option, which is critical for coffee shops. You want something you could depend on, but it's also a beautiful espresso machine made by hand in Florence, Italy since 1927. Their machines not only are that dependable workhorse, beautiful, but also they're very innovative. They have like high tech and low tech espresso machines for your needs. Machines like the KB90 espresso machine, scales in the drip tray, straight in locking portafilters, the whole shebang. Of course, the Linea Classic's always available. I enjoy the Linea PB. Is one of my personal favorites to work on. But you go to the website, lamarzocousa.com, and check it out for yourself. I think you're going to find something that really suits your needs, and reach out to them. They want to have a conversation with you at info@lamarzocousa.com. Then one of their sales folks will be happy to talk with you about what equipment you need for your cafe. So thanks to La Marzocco, but also we're sponsored today by our friends at Rattleware. If you're looking for smallwares that are designed by people who want things to just work, I mean, how could you argue with that? The smallwares, when they don't work, make a huge pain in the butt. I mean, just hard to operate on a shift when a freaking shot glass doesn't work well, or a knockbox or something like that. You just want that thing to be like designed the way it's supposed to be, so you can focus on the big picture, right? The making of the drink, the serving of the guest. So Rattleware is there to help. So go to their website, rattleware.com, and they will you can scroll through the catalog, and lots of other places are serving and are selling Rattleware products. I just think when you look underneath the smallwares, the pitcher or something like that, and you see Rattleware, it's a good feeling. So check them out, rattleware.com. Now, today's episode is about creativity. And one of the things we hear about a lot is, coffee is a creative pursuit and it's an art. There's an art and a craft. Of course, there's science involved. It's, depending on who you ask, it's more of one than the other. But we're creative people. A lot of people who are into the arts are into coffee. I would say that I'm a particularly, I'm kind of leaning a lot towards the arts in lots of different ways beyond coffee. And so I'm kind of like that person who got attracted to coffee because of the quote unquote art of it. And so when we talk to people about what values they want to see, they say, okay, we want creativity. Okay, that's important to us, is creativity. And it sounds great, but the question you have to ask yourself is, what do you mean? And where does creativity live in the cafe so that it actually is helpful and you don't regret actually promoting creativity? Because creativity can be a huge asset in terms of your staff. If they are creative, that energy can be harnessed to affect a lot of positive change. But if creativity is just something that's a word thrown out there to say, we give people the license to be creative with how they do things in the cafe, then it kind of turns into a free for all. And it's hard for artistically bent people to embrace boundaries, to embrace structure, because it feels like it's the antithesis of creativity, when in fact, it actually is the thing that allows creativity to be powerful. The constriction of freedom, to a certain degree, creates more creativity. And so, if we did want to see creativity in the cafe, we've got to be pretty specific about where it should live. And there are some areas where I think it should and I think it shouldn't. First of all, where it should not live is in the day to day menu and recipe and preparation of coffee. That is something that at one point was a creative pursuit. And after that pursuit was accomplished, we ended up with a menu. And we don't want to have people flexing their creative muscles drink per drink, customer by customer. We get these exceptions to the rule. We've made a shift break ages ago about this, where secret menu items are made by certain baristas for certain people, but nobody else knows about these things. Well, I was just being creative. I was trying to be in the moment and serve the needs of the guest. Again, this is where constraint will be something that actually helps the creative process, because that barista could have, instead of in the moment, changing something for the sake of the customer's palate. I mean, it's different when it's within bounds, like adding another espresso shot or adding more syrup and that kind of thing. Those are prescribed, those are within our menu. But when it's something that becomes such an exception to the rule, and you change it in the moment, what you're doing is you're actually robbing everybody else of the benefit of maybe what you had as a creative idea. So maybe you had a solution to a problem that customer is expressing. It's not just their problem. Maybe a lot of customers have that. So a creative expression in the moment, in secret, creates this time bomb of disappointment. At certain points, that customer will come back and try to get that drink they got that one time the creative barista was there, and they won't be able to get it because that person's not there, right? So it becomes this, oh gosh, this place, this branch. Now it's not about that barista anymore. Now it's the company. So what we need to do is say, that's, if you've got the mind to solve a problem for the customer, let's harness that creative energy and bring it within the scope of larger scale solution. So not in the moment on the day-to-day making of the coffee, when it's outside the regulation of what we're doing in the cafe. Like I said, things like adding shots or syrups and other things. Those are exceptions, I think, that can be universally applied, and not necessarily creatively applied by the barista who says, I think my shots of espresso should have 3 grams more than the average shot of espresso here because I think it tastes better. That's an exception that's not within the bounds of what a barista should have the freedom to do. If they find that a customer is, dissatisfied with something and kind of our hands are tied, I mean, you can pursue as a barista what you have in that moment thought, maybe this is a solution. Let me talk to my manager. Let me talk to the owner, see if maybe this is something that others have experienced. Now we can apply the solution across the cafe, and we're actually using creativity to serve to benefit actually everybody in the line who might order that drink. So creativity, I think, in the menu has a place, but not necessarily when you're calling audibles in the middle of service, in the form of, like, if a cappuccino in your cafe has very pillowy foam, right? And the customer, without asking you to do so, receives something that's not the norm for that menu. Even though they've got it a bunch of times, you might be that third wave barista that comes in and says, well, cappuccino foam should be really dense and silky. So I'm going to do this cafe a favor. I'm going to exercise my creative muscle, and I'm just going to make it the way that I think. And I'm going to sneak, quality standards into the cafe, right? That's irresponsible. It's a little self-centered. It's not actually serving the guest really in the long run. Taking a stepwise and structured approach to that problem solving is actually more of a creative pursuit than in the moment trying to sort of shoehorn your own thing into the bar. And creativity also, I think, has a place within the scope of the systems of the cafe. So creative problem solving is often cited by managers in what they want to see from baristas. As we always say, if you're, it's no good if the creative problem that they're solving, or the problem that they're solving, they have to get creative because somebody didn't do their job. So if you're a manager or an owner and you didn't set them up for success the right way and they have to be creative, it's hardly a pat on the back for you that you've got a crew of people who are resourceful and creative. But that there are standard problems that come with a coffee shop is known and accepted, and having creative solutions is kind of just inevitable. The mind of a barista who is working day by day wants to, because the mind itself, the human mind itself, wants to create solutions, create efficiencies, be effective in the work, be rewarded for a job well done. We are reward seeking organisms. And so you don't really have to force this. It's almost kind of silly to say, well, we want people to be creative problem solvers. They are. We just have to give them the opportunity to voice what problems they've seen that they can solve. So creativity, I think, is inherent within a staff who, even if it's just self-centered and they think, I want my job to be easier as a barista, they might have a solution in mind. Your job is to curate that, use that energy and say, how could the creative energy of my staff better the entire thing? So if one person who works the POS one day thinks, man, I wish I didn't have to take an extra step to get this item, and they ask about it, or they even, like, for themselves, they move it, it's not a big deal. I went and worked at a coffee shop for a while where somebody moved the air pots from one location to another because it was easier for them to get it. It was such a good solution. And it was really splitting hairs for management at that point to be a little bit uptight about it. Like, well, they didn't ask us if we could move the AirPods, but it was such a obvious solution to a huge problem. And it's from that point forward kind of lived in that position because it's such an obvious thing to do. So you kind of have to pick your battles. You can see, maybe you don't want everybody just kind of making it so that the tamper is, like, all of a sudden in a different place, or the urns aren't where they normally are, and somebody who is very locked into their morning routine, if they're an opener, and the closers put it in a different place because they like it there. I can see where that would be very frustrating. I've done that. I've been the barista who kind of moved stuff because for me, I was like, man, this is really good. I think everyone's going to like this. With the openers in the morning, they've got the 30 minutes, or the paltry 30 minutes that most people get, down to a science. And so if one thing is out of line, you might as well have just, stuck your, foot out in the Tour de France or something. It's just that high velocity of activity with that little difference makes a huge disruption. And so that's deference to people. Even though you have a creative solution, if you feel like, I just really want to move this, I'm like, maybe don't in the moment. See about, hey, can we move these here? It seems like a small thing, but again, when everybody is busy and we're counting on things being in a particular place, mise en place, everything in its place, it is actually a big deal if you move the tamper. Do people use tampers anymore? I don't know. You can't really move the puck press now, right? But you know what I mean. If it's a pitcher, or if it's spoon, cup, or whatever. So their creativity, I think, is a great value to have within particular bounds. Create boundaries that don't say, hey, you're not allowed to be creative, but here within these boundaries and with this, maybe workflow of decisions and ideation and that kind of thing, let's harness our collective creativity to make a better place, to refine the systems, to move some stuff around, that kind of stuff. So I think that I wanted to address that because it helps to know that you don't have to get rid of creativity. And it helps to know that you don't have to just give everybody carte blanche on whatever they think is right, because this isn't an individual pursuit. And if every barista just did what they thought was right in the moment without any guidelines or boundaries, it'd be not a good look for the cafe. Now, it might be cathartic in the moment for the people, but let's just face it, the coffee shop doesn't exist solely for the benefit of the individuals working it. It is a service job. We are serving the neighbors. We are serving our community. And we have to have unity in that pursuit, unity in the work. And our creativity can enhance that work when it's guided in the right way. So I hope that helps. And let me know what you think. If you've experienced this in a positive way, if you've gone the other route and allowed too much creativity in the cafe, send an email to chris@keystotheshop.com. And by the way, I love answering questions. And if you have questions about coffee shops and the like, operations and leadership and stuff you want to hear on the show, send an email to chris@keystotheshop.com. You can also reach out there if you're interested in coaching, consulting, or our key holder coaching groups. So thanks, everybody. And shout out to our friends, Lo-Fi Cafe out there in Brooklyn, for the awesome shirt. And I hope you're all doing well. Take care. And as always, we'll see you next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.